Hi everyone, welcome back for today's reading. Today we're looking at Luke chapter 7 verses 11 to 17. Soon afterwards, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up and touched the bier they were carrying him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. Well, I love how this passage shows how compassionate Jesus is. Here's this woman who has lost her husband. She's a widow. So she's gone through the grief of that, but now she's going through the grief of losing her only son. So as she goes along in the funeral procession, she's understandably crying, so deeply upset with the double grief now in her family. And also the uncertain future ahead. Normally it would be her husband or then her son who would provide for her. That was the way it worked in that culture. Who would care for her now? Well, Jesus sees her. He notices her, and his heart goes out to her. The heart is the very centre of one's being. And so here we have Jesus, the very centre of who Jesus is, being filled with compassion for her. And he comes alongside and says, "Don't cry." He reassures her. See how tender and loving and caring he is towards her. That's such good news for us to remember about Jesus, that he is compassionate like this. He won't turn us away in our need. As we come to him, asking for his help, he says, "Don't cry. Don't be in despair. Come and find love, hope, rescue, mercy from him." He'll welcome us. Jesus is so compassionate. That's maybe so different from what we might fear he would do if we think of Jesus possibly as being stern and harsh and that he might turn us away. No, he won't do that, because Jesus is compassionate. He cares for us in our need, so he won't turn us away. Instead he says, "Come." Also notice that Jesus is able to do something about the situation. He's not just giving reassuring words that ultimately have no meaning or doesn't make any difference ultimately to what's happened to her son. No, Jesus is actually able to do something about the situation. He goes to her son and raises him from the dead. He had definitely died, but Jesus then raises him alive again. He actually has power to bring somebody back to life. Well, we're going to think in a moment about what that means for us, because Jesus has that kind of power and authority to work in our lives. Now, to lead into that, I think we need to, first of all, just remember where we're up to in Luke's Gospel. Luke's Gospel is an orderly account. It's very logical and it's very ordered. He said that back in chapter 1, that he was going to set it out very clearly, and he has done. Notice how the sections have gone. Chapters 1 to 2 was the anticipation of the Saviour. Chapter 3, verses 1 to 20, was the preparation for the Saviour. Then we saw the Saviour's qualifications in chapter 3, verse 21 to chapter 4, verse 13. Then we saw the Saviour's mission in chapter 4, verse 14 to chapter 6, verse 11. Then we saw the Saviour's people, chapter 6, verse 12 to verse 49. And now in chapters 7 to 8, we've come to a clear section block, which is all about the Saviour's rescue. The Saviour's rescue. The section, chapters 7 to 8, starts with two miracles. We saw one yesterday with Jesus healing somebody who was sick, about to die, and now today, raising somebody back to life. And chapter 8 finishes the section at the very end of chapter 8 with two other miracles. Jesus calms a storm, and Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. In other words, this section, chapter 7 to 8, is bookended by two miracles that shows that Jesus is able to overcome and to restore things that are wrong in the world, wrong in life. Sickness, death, disorder in creation, and evil powers. He's able to restore. He's able to bring wellness, making somebody well again after being sick. He's able to bring life. He's able to bring restoration to creation, restoration to people. So that's what Jesus is able to do. Those are the effects of his salvation. Jesus is able to restore. And that's talking about the new creation which Jesus is going to bring one day. A new heavens, new earth. And all who trust in him will live there perfectly forever, with no pain, no suffering, no sickness, no sadness. That's what Jesus is able to bring. The Saviour's rescue has that effect. But notice what's at the centre of this section, chapter 7 to 8. At the centre of it all, which is the cause of everything else flows from it, is that Jesus is able to forgive. That's at the end of chapter 7. So we'll come to that, but I just want you to notice that Jesus is able to forgive sins, to make us right with God. And with that in place then, Jesus is able to take us into a new creation with all things restored. So come back to that story where Jesus raised that son back to life. Well, Jesus is able to raise us to life. If we come to him asking for his mercy and forgiveness, he will not only forgive us and make us right with God now, but we have the new creation to look forward to. Free from illness, free from death, free from disorder and chaos of this broken world, free from evil, to live safely with God forever. Well, I hope that map of this first part of Luke's Gospel helps to see that logical order and this precious section we're in about Jesus' incredible rescue, and that he really does have the power and authority to do that. And what a comfort it is to know that Jesus really is able to make a difference. His miracles prove that he doesn't just have comforting words to say, he can actually change things, taking us to a new creation.